Let's take a look at the UV panel and UV toolkit here in Maya 2022. I'm going to first set my viewport arrangement to be two side-by-side viewports, and I'm going to arrange in the left viewport a picture of my UV panel, and I'm going to do that by going to Panels, Panel, UV Editor, and this allows me to see a model and its UVs at the same time. So if I were to create, say, a polygonal model of type sphere, once I select that object, I'm seeing its UVs here in the left-hand UV editor. And let's look a little bit at some basic tools for manipulating UVs here. I can delete UVs. So if I were to do that, this object no longer has UVs, so it can no longer have a texture assigned to it. And I can also create new UVs based on certain projections, based on either the way this camera is looking at the object, so that maps very specifically a set of UVs based on the direction of the camera. I could create UVs based on wrapping it as if it were a cylinder, and I'm just going to pull away this menu here. I can wrap it as though it's a cylinder, which you can begin to see the cylindrical kind of mechanism and how it's wrapping around this object. And often the strategy with UVs is to pick a projection mechanism that works best for the object shape or is sympathetic to the object shape. And so in this case, this object isn't terribly sympathetic to cylindrical mapping, and neither is it sympathetic to planar mapping. So if I were to have that object selected and choose planar, this is going to be projecting down from above in a flat plane. Oops. Or if I were to check the options for planar, I could choose the axis that I wanted to go on. And I could also choose, again, the camera-based axis. But if I chose the y-axis and project it, that's applying down from above. And if I chose the x-axis, that's going to be projecting in from the side. And this 2D mapping gizmo gives you a sense of where that projection is coming from. I can also select some automatic projection, which will unfold this in a certain number of directions based on how many planes you give it. So it's going to try to either optimize it with less distortion or in fewer pieces with this number of planes. So if I were to choose 6 planes, you can see how each of these gizmos is projecting into a certain piece of geometry, and we can see the outlines of that geometry. And if I were to select my shells here, let's see, this shell is coming from one side, and at a certain point the faces on that sphere point more in the opposite, in this direction rather than that direction, and so that's where it picks that other plane. So it has kind of flattened these down into different projections based on the number of planes in that automatic projection. So those are some basic ways to investigate kind of how to make and delete UVs for simple polygonal objects in Maya.